So, something that has been on my mind recently has been the role of water in Super Mario Sunshine. I'm not sure exactly why. The role of water in this game is a bit weird. I mean, to begin with, the game is obviously about water. You have water in your backpack and you use it to shoot at the graffiti. But at the same time, this is a holiday resort. It is a place of water anyway, right? So it is using the fact that it is a holiday place, a sort of a seaside holiday place, and somehow connecting it to the fact that you're shooting water with your backpack. That is the main thing that you're doing in this game. But then beyond that, there's something that is happening in connection with Mario 64. Because, as far as I know, Mario 64 is the previous 3D Mario game before this. And in Mario 64, the same sort of thing is happening where you're entering into paintings and then it takes you to a special world, right? So Mario Sunshine is doing the same. You basically enter into paintings, but right, there's a difference, right? Something has happened, and I'm not sure what it is. I don't know exactly what the meaning of this is, but in Mario 64, you are entering into paintings, into dry paint, on the wall, framed, right? So the same stuff had happened. A paintbrush had painted wet paint onto a surface and then it dried, and then that serves as your entrance into the world. In Mario Sunshine, you're entering into the wet paint. You're entering directly into the liquid, which is what you're using in this game all the time, right? You're using water. There's something that sort of surrounds these themes. On the one hand, Shadow Mario, Bowser Jr., right, is using wet paint as its way of attacking you. Different enemies use this paint as ways of attacking you. They don't just, use it for graffiti. They can fling it towards you. They can hurt you with it. I don't know actually if they can fling it towards you, but in any case, it's the liquid that the enemies in this game use. So you are using, as a counterattack to that, water, which is your liquid. It's the liquid that you use to counterattack that. So these two forces are entering into opposition, and one of them is paint, the other one is water. Both, therefore, are presented as equal. They're both in this sort of dialectical tension as like in that they're both liquids, basically. So that's interesting, because in Mario Sunshine, you're entering into these paintings. You're entering into this liquid paint that has been slushed onto the wall, right? What does that mean? You're entering into the components of a painting. You see? Like, the painting in Mario 64 was like a finished, dry painting, framed. This is still wet. The paint is still wet in Mario Sunshine. So this is the paint that was used. It is paint. It is the paint that was used in 64. You see what I mean? It's the same material, but in its wet form. So you're entering into the material that would have been used in the previous game. So from one game to the next, there has been some sort of a devolution almost, right? You're entering into the primary materials that were being used to make the paintings from the previous game. The images in the previous game were made from this. Yeah. So then it seems as if maybe this game is honing in on a specific quality of paint, right? We're being shown the same sort of structure as Mario 64. You're entering into this piece of art on the wall. It's just that here, Mario Sunshine is showing you the fact that paint is that it's a liquid, of course, but also that it's a rainbow. Like, that might be a piece of the puzzle. In the box art to Mario Sunshine, we're shown the rainbow, the full spectrum of colors. Why? Because paint, right? This is what paint is in this game. Paint in this game is very rarely just one color. It's a huge sort of iridescent mass. So it's showing you this sort of rainbow aspect of paint, right? This is being emphasized by the game all the time. Paint is never just one color. It's all the colors. It's rainbow. But what is this game about? This game is about sunshine. It's about, therefore, light. That which creates rainbows in the first place, that which generates rainbows. It's where the full spectrum of color kind of even appears for us. So I'm sort of interested in exploring that there is a weird triangulation of concepts here. Because on the one hand, sunshine is dry, hot, right? Water is cool, refreshing, right? That's why this place combines both elements in this way. It's a hot place that you would want to swim in the water in. So water or liquid and therefore paint as a liquid here is appearing in a sort of opposition to the sun, almost. But then the sun, in its role as rainbow generator, as the realm of light, and therefore the realm of all visible colors, is somehow also resonating interestingly with this theme of paint. Anyway, I think I just dumped too many concepts there, but I want to try and explore these maybe slightly more one by one. We have paint then. And if paint is somehow the rainbow, then paint could represent the spectrum of color, the spectrum of visible color, everything that you see. And everything that you see in this game is all that there is, because this game is something that you are looking at on a screen, right? So you are seeing colorful images, basically. Anyway, I think I'm getting caught up now in all this stuff, so I'm gonna head off to the opposite side of this, which is dryness, dry stuff. And let's look for a second at Mario 64. Mario 64 has a dry level called Shifting Sandland. In Japanese, this has a name that roughly translates to hot desert. So it's a desert, it's hot, it's dry, right? There is no water here. And it is a place where we meet this boss, right? Which is basically two hands with eyes in them. That's one of the characteristics of this land, is that it is a place where there are two hands with eyes on them. So, things are being felt with the hands. The hands, right, that they can touch, feel. It is out of the different senses of the body. It is the sense of touch in some way. But here, it is as if the sense of touch is being expressed through vision, through the eyes. Okay. See, there's another aspect of this level that I may be reading a little too much into, but the number 4 is somehow present here. We have, obviously, a pyramid in the center of the level, surrounded by 4 pillars. 4 pillars surround this pyramid. And I don't really think that many more levels in this game have such an emphasized 4 disposition, but I may be wrong. But here we have this clear sort of number 4 pillars surrounding a pyramid, and a pyramid obviously has 4 sides, so it's also a 4-sided thing. But then, almost as if to emphasize this, we have those sort of shifting cube enemies, right, on the side, which have 4 sides. I mean, they have more than 4 sides, right? They're a cube. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 sides. But I think they sort of emphasize this element of 4-ness of the square as shape, the 4-sided shape, let's say. I feel that somehow something like this is going on, and those cubes, right, they can move in any direction, left, right, front and center, front and back. They can move in any direction and they will be able to move. They have a face for every direction. They can face in any direction. They can face it in any one of the 4 directions that they can face in. So again, they also have 4 directions they can move in as cubes, and each direction has like a different face attached to it. That's very interesting to me, the fact that the number 4 is associated to the desert in this case, because in this way, the way that the number 4 is appearing here, to me makes me think of space itself, right? Like what these cubes are doing, they're moving through space. They're moving through space, front, back, left, right, in these sort of 4 basic directions, the cardinal points of space: south, north, east, west. So I feel almost as if that's what represents space. The fact that you can move in these generally definable 4 directions around your body. And so I was thinking about this and thinking, well, this is, in a sense, what a desert is, because a desert is little more than space, right? There is no life. I mean, there is like less life than in a thriving jungle or under the ocean or whatever, right? There is less life, so it is the sand that rests under life. In a jungle, it would be the earth that is under the trees, right? A desert almost represents like whatever is behind and under life. So just this sort of pure space, kind of. And I find that very interesting because that's sort of what Mario is navigating all the time. He's navigating these platforms, right, that sort of represent space as well. It's just him moving through different versions of space. That's what Mario is good at. He's good at navigating space. He's good at navigating space in its abstract form, in this form that is abstracted from life and from anything that grows on the sand and on the ground, on the desert, so to speak. It's interesting because this is Mario's role, in a sense. He is a plumber. So he is someone who descends down under life. Life is thriving up on the surface in the city. But Mario descends down under the city into the depths where there is no life or less life or something different, a completely different form of life that is under the city and that is slightly more abstract, more bare. Mario somehow is an expert in that. He's an expert in descending under to this sort of abstract base of life. So I think that this, I feel as if that captures what Mario is doing pretty well. But how does he do that? Well, he travels through space. That's, in a sense, what his role as a platformer is. That's what I think being a platformer is, and I'm kind of improvising this definition, but I would say it's almost as if it's a game where you navigate space. It's a game where the main attraction is navigating space. Yes, there are enemies to kill and so on, but basically you're moving through space, right? In a first-person shooter, the goal of the game is the way in which you're interacting with the enemies, and the skill is the skill of shooting, right? Here, the skill is walking, jumping, running. That's mainly what you're doing. You're doing things which involve navigating space. They're games that hone in on that. And Mario does that by entering into different worlds. That has always been like the Mario way, is you go into different worlds and you navigate space in different ways. And in a sense, that's sort of what's the fun of the game, is that you navigate space in different places. So if you navigate a snowy mountain, maybe the ground is slippery and icy. And if you navigate a hot, sandy place, maybe there are hot areas of sand that you can't step on because you get burnt. So there are different varieties of space to navigate, different varieties of world. So you could say almost that when Mario enters down a tube as a plumber, he's entering down into the abstract version of that world. You see, like in a world, again, as different kinds of video games show, you can do many things. You could, if it was like an Animal Crossing style game, maybe you would focus more on building a community and the social relations in that world. If it was a puzzle game, you might focus more on using your intellectual skills to find clues in the environment and so on. In Mario games, you're specifically focusing on the bare mechanics of space sort of navigation, of just moving through space. So I think that that's what Mario is doing when he descends down into the tubes. That is to say, Mario as plumber is someone who goes down into the bare skeleton of what a world is, just its basic material kind of constituents, basic spatial constituents. I know I'm sort of drilling this point, but I want to sort of explore it deeply somehow. The way, in any case, that Mario seems to do this is entering into paintings. That seems to have been the way that he has done this in most of his games in some form or another, right? In the 2D games, you would enter into just a representation of that world within the greater map. I don't think those representations were meant to be paintings in those games. I think that it was trying to literally be like a literal representation of a map of a huge land, and then you as Mario would go into that smaller place, that smaller castle, that smaller forest in the map, and appear at an enlarged version of it within the level, as if you were traveling towards a forest that's in the distance. Or, of course, right, maybe it makes more sense to think of it as you, the player, are looking at Mario from the distance in the map, and then when you select that castle, you, the player, zoom in to an enlarged version of that castle. So basically, I think in those games, both the small castle on the map and the big castle that you actually travel in are meant to be the same castle. But then somehow when that translates into 3D, something happens, right? That somehow that needs to be conveyed in a different way. And the way it seems to be conveyed is that you have the small castle and the big castle, but the 3D world makes a very clear distinction between the two. And it's so clear, it's so striking, that the only way you can make it natural is by saying that it's literally a representation of the castle, a painting, a representation of the forest, whatever it may be, right? It's somehow 3D makes that decision happen. You're entering into a simulation of the mountain, and then once you enter into that simulation, you appear at the real mountain. Some weird sort of symbolic thing is going on there. And so I find it interesting because from Mario 64 onwards, you get the sense that what Mario is doing is he's entering into paintings, and that's how he's exploring space, is by crossing the threshold of these flat 2D images and accessing their 3D counterparts. So then what's fascinating to me about that is that it sort of returns Mario back into his original role as plumber. Because what he's doing is he's entering into the depths. Entering the painting becomes an act of entering into a deeper place, in the same way that going down into the tube was, right? Now Mario is forced to go inside of a deep place through a small kind of portal or entrance, which is what the tube was. The painting becomes that sort of entrance. I think that the game even intuitively does this, because the painting is liquid in a way, right? You enter into the painting and it ripples. It's water. So Mario's role as someone who descends down into the sewers, and therefore into the water, down into the abyssal waters under the ground, is somehow happening through his act of entering into the painting. The painting represents that. It represents the pipe, the piping, the sewers, the depths of the painting, what's underneath that world, what's underneath the trees and the life and the everything that's growing on top, right? What is underneath? Just the desert, the sand, the bare components of space, of platforming, of moving. That's why I think it's interesting that the boss of that desert level are two hands with eyes on them, because it's almost as if the game is noticing that the way in which you can see this world and look at that painting is by using your hands on the controller. The only way you can look at these things is by using the Nintendo 64 controller with both of your hands. The Nintendo 64 controller becomes, in your hands, it becomes your eyes. The only way Mario can see things in this world is by your hands guiding the stick around and moving through space. So that your hands become a proxy for your eyes and for looking at these paintings on the wall, which are the video game that you're looking at. Somehow the game is making this weird connection, I think, between the desert as something that is bare and kind of devoid of life, this just an abstraction of life, with sort of the act of navigating that with your hands. The fact that moving through space is happening with your hands, right? That's the only way you can move through space, is by using the controller. But that moving through space implies looking. That this game is somehow an artifact that is to be observed. What's bizarre about this then is that Mario Sunshine seems to make a further evolution on this theme, right? As I said, Mario 64 presents us with these dry paintings on a wall, but it can't avoid turn them into a liquid. You splash into them. Mario Sunshine basically sort of it seems to guess. It knows that Mario 64 was trying to make its paintings liquid, but it couldn't. It didn't know how to break that convention. So here, the painting is made liquid finally. It becomes a goo. And then as you enter this goo, you hear the sound of Mario going down a pipe. The same sound that is used when Mario goes down a pipe, the sort of hook, hook, hook. Sound is the sound that you hear when you enter into the paint in Mario Sunshine. So Mario Sunshine is equating going down into the paint, into the painting. So that is this sort of visual, right? The visual representation of the world that you're jumping into, right? You're jumping into this visual world. It's equating that with going down a pipe, being a plumber, and descending down into the sewers. Which is funny because, again, this is what you're doing as a player. You're entering into the painting. You're entering into that paint in front of you in the screen. So then it's also sort of telling you, you player, by doing this, are entering down into the sewers. You're entering into something that is somehow below ordinary surface life. My personal interpretation is that you're doing this precisely because it's a platformer, precisely because it's a game that involves the simple navigation of space. Because I think that most players playing this in a world, you know, whose technology is advanced enough to even be able to have Nintendo 64s, GameCubes, and so on, the players playing this would live in a world that is extremely sort of symbolically navigated, a world in which you very barely just platform and just move through space, right? You move through space in order to get to certain places. Platformers, Mario games, are games where you enjoy moving through space. That is to say, you simply enjoy being. The basis of meditation. You're simply enjoying being in space and time. That's why I think it's a deeper level. That's why you're somehow entering into the sewers in this sense, in that it is something that's dirty and below. But then, of course, a sewer is also a place of shadows. It's a dark place. You go down there and there's no light. And the game also emphasizes this because the actual sewer kind of covers in this game are like a flip coin. They have a sun on the one side and a moon on the other. It's playing with this idea that when you go down into the sewers, it's the moon, it's darkness. When you go out of the sewers, it's the sun. So you're going down into darkness or up into sun. And it's emphasizing this fact that somehow what you're doing is you're entering into the darkness, right? You're constantly, when you enter each level, each paint blob on the wall, you hear that sound, the sound of the drain, the sound that leads you into darkness. So I guess I find it funny that this should be happening in a game whose story is that you're dispelling darkness from the light. You're dispelling the darkness from the light. So the way you're doing this is by entering down into the darkness somehow. You're entering into the darkness and confronting it or cleaning it up literally with water and then rising back up. So anyway, a lot of interesting themes I'd like to explore in this game, but I think that's probably enough for one video. So yeah, thanks.